Hey girl, let's talk crime. My name is Angel and welcome to my channel. So if you've been here before, hello and welcome back. And if this is your first time coming across one of my videos, thank you so much for being here. This video was supposed to be posted yesterday. However, I have been feeling crazy. Like the last couple of weeks has been a weird combination of like stomach aches and like migraines, and I don't really know what's going on. I did ultimately go to the hospital because I was getting kind of concerned. And I'm one of those people that Google everything like, oh, it has to be this. I must have 2 days left to live. Everything seemed fine. She just said it was a migraine. So I don't know. But I don't want to do all this talking. So before we jump right into the case, I did want to talk about something. So in the last maybe couple of weeks, I have been getting a lot more comments, a lot more followers, a lot more messages. And I am very appreciative of that and humbled by the support. So a lot of people have also inquired how to do true crime videos, right? First of all, I am not an expert at all. This is something that I did initially because I was very intrigued by true crime. But the more that I do this and especially come across these cases, especially those of missing people, I find that my heart is really attached. Something that I just wanted to kind of put out there for anyone that does want to do true crime, whether it's on TikTok or a podcast or YouTube, or you want to write about it, whatever it is. I can't tell anybody else how to run their pages, their blogs, their TikToks, their YouTubes, their podcasts. But I just want to offer some advice. One of the biggest things that I think people kind of don't really consider is that behind these cases, behind these stories, there are real people hurting. There are real families that have been affected. And so we have to understand that we are talking about the absolute worst day of someone's life. It's really important to tell these stories with respect, not only to the victims, but also those that are still here. In some of these cases, victims are still alive. And in some of them, majority of them, they do not survive, but their families are left to deal with their pain. And so it's just really important. And I say that because a lot of times I have received messages from family members asking me to remove videos. And anytime that happens, it's like a punch to the gut. You know, I feel like I failed them miserably. I feel like, you know, there must have been something that I said that was so wrong that, you know, they want the video removed. And, you know, I don't question it. I don't go back and forth. I don't keep the video up. I absolutely remove it because it is not up to me. You know, and then I get the comments where people are like, thank you so much for telling my sister's story, or thank you for telling my dad's story. And it just like, it motivates me. Like, you know what? No, like this, I'm doing something, like this matters, like this matters. And so I just want to say for anyone that wants to start, you know, posting true crime content, to understand that, you know, for you, it may be entertainment, but for the victims, it is absolutely traumatic. And it is imperative that you understand that you are telling someone's story, and you need to do it in a respectful and humane way. Saying all of that, let's jump into today's case.
Hey girl, let's talk crime. 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 Ludicrous, crazy, bizarre. Bone chilling tales that'll leave you left in awe. No sugar coating, no filter. Raw. Let's talk crime with your host and your song. Hey girl, let's
On the morning of May 30th, 2005, Beth Holloway received a message that no mother would ever want to read. Her 18-year-old daughter, Natalee, had disappeared during a school trip to Aruba. Despite extensive searches and several suspects being named and arrested, no one has ever been charged with Natalee's murder, and her remains have never been located. Born on October 21st, 1986, Natalee Holloway was the first of two children of Dave and Elizabeth Holloway. Sometime after their parents divorced in 1993, Natalee and her brother Marcus moved in to an upscale suburb of Mountain Brook, Alabama, to live with their mother and stepfather George. Those close to Natalee would describe her as a very independent person who was always working hard towards her goals. She had always received straight A's and was a part of the National Honor Society. In addition, Natalee found time to work as a volunteer at Habitat for Humanity, the Humane Society, and Hope Lodge. She made friends everywhere that she went, and overall she really enjoyed her life. The beginning of 2005 was an exciting time for Natalee. She graduated with honors from Mountain Brook High School in May and already had a full scholarship to the University of Alabama. And not just that, but traditionally the senior class traveled to the Caribbean island of Aruba to celebrate their graduation. Natalee was preparing for this trip since the new year. She was choosing her swimsuits, what outfits she wanted to wear, and what could be more fun than a trip to an exotic island with friends, spending time at the beach. Although Beth was extremely proud of Natalee's hard work and knew that Natalee had more than deserved this, she was also feeling a bit uneasy. Beth had heard some stories about Aruba, and one of the stories by a former Mountain Brook student had especially stuck with her. According to this former student, during his trip to the island 2 years ago, he had come across a pretty risky situation. He had seen some locals asking his female classmates to go with them outside of a popular nightclub. He had interrupted this conversation and the man left. It wasn't that Beth did not trust Natalee, but she definitely didn't trust other people. She has this really serious talk with Natalee, reminding her about the dangers that could occur, on the trip. And also reminded Natalee how she had always been a responsible person, always trustworthy, and that she knew that she would make good decisions on this senior trip. So there was no way that Beth would know that when she drove her daughter Natalee to her friend's house for their early departure, that this would be the last time that she would ever see her. On May 26, 2005, Natalee and 124 other Mountain Brook students arrived in Aruba for their unofficial graduation celebratory trip. Of course, the students were not traveling alone. They had 7 teachers there with them as chaperones. However, their job was just to do morning check-ins and help the teenagers if needed. Otherwise, the students were free to do whatever they wanted, and the teachers would not follow them and micromanage their entire trip. The whole group stayed at Holiday Inn Resort near the northern end of the island, and according to the statements from Natalee's friends, they spent a lot of time at the beach, having dinners at the restaurants and exploring the clubs and the local nightlife. Apparently, straight from the beginning, Natalee was enjoying alcoholic drinks and maybe just a bit much, but she was having fun. She had a cocktail in her hand basically from the beginning of the day until the end. And as Natalee did not show up for group breakfast on at least 2 occasions, others just simply thought it was due to her feeling hungover. Still, it seemed like the teens were having a great time until something went horribly wrong. During the last day at the island on May 29th, Natalee met a man by the name of Jorn Vandersloot at the hotel casino. Jorn said that he was 19 years old, he was a tourist from Holland, and asked if he could see Natalee again later on that night. So she agreed to meet him at Carlos and Charlie's nightclub, which was the exact location that the former student of Mountain Brook High School said that he had seen men trying to lure his classmates to go with them. As it was their last night, Natalee and her friends were determined to have as much fun as they possibly could. So they partied in a large group of classmates at the nightclub until closing time, which was at 1 a.m. Most of the students headed back to the hotel because they needed to wake up early to catch their flight in the morning. Natalee was not amongst those students. Instead, around 1:30 a.m., she was last seen in a silver car with 3 men, and that was the last sighting of Natalee Holloway alive. That morning, other students and the teachers of Mountain Brook High School gathered at the Holiday Inn Hotel's lobby to make sure that everyone was prepared for departure. But Natalee was nowhere to be found. Her friends had searched the hotel but found no signs of her, and Natalee's passport and bags were found untouched in her room. And at this point, the seriousness of the situation was realized, and that's when teachers sent a message to Beth to inform her that her daughter was missing. As soon as Beth had read the text message, she knew that something was terribly wrong. Beth said, "I knew immediately that my daughter had been kidnapped in Aruba. Natalee had never been late in her life." Still, Beth did not panic. Instead, she became extremely focused with one purpose in mind: Natalee. While driving 110 miles an hour straight through Mississippi, Beth called 911 to report that her daughter was missing and also informed them that no matter the speed limits, she was not going to stop if the police would come after her. Then Beth contacted her husband and the FBI. Beth was so effective that by the time she reached Birmingham, Alabama, she already had a private jet waiting for her, arranged by a family friend. Around 10 p.m., Beth, George, and two of his longtime friends arrived at the international airport in Aruba. Natalee was not yet an officially missing person, and authorities were not involved in the case. But it did not take long for Beth to find out that her daughter had spent time with a man by the name of Joran the night before. He was actually one of the three men in the silver car where Natalee had last been seen. The other two were his friends. So, Joran admitted that he had left with Natalee and the brothers from the nightclub to a lighthouse, but he insisted that they had dropped Natalee off at her hotel around 2 a.m. He also said that there was a night guard who had seen him and even helped Natalee back to her room as she had been heavily intoxicated. However, this guard was not located, so there was really no way to confirm his story. On June 1st, around 100 tourists and locals joined Natalee's mother and stepfather in this desperate search to find Natalee, but there were absolutely no signs of her nor clues as to what happened. Eventually, the FBI and members of the Netherlands Marine Corps began their investigation. Curiously, on June 5th, the police arrested former security guards of a temporarily closed hotel and Joran's father and a party boat DJ soon after. However, all of them were released pretty quickly, and the question remained: why had the authorities not questioned Joran or his friends? Constant pressure from Beth and George and the government official to Aruba's police, and finally they did arrest Joran Vandersloot and the Kalpo brothers on June 9th. Unsurprisingly, at this point, their story had already changed. So the brothers said that they had actually dropped Joran and Natalee off at a beach just near the Holiday Inn, and Joran said that he had just left Natalee there and walked back home. There were many red flags, but due to lack of physical evidence, the Kalpo brothers were released after a month in custody. Joran remained behind bars until September 3rd, but was also released without charges. By this time, the Holloway family had put together a $200,000 reward for any information leading to the location of Natalee's remains. Sadly, they knew very well that at this point it was unlikely that she would be found alive. Despite their efforts, Natalee's fate remained a mystery. Nearly 2.5 years later, on November 21st, 2007, Joran Vandersloot and the Kalpo brothers were arrested again. Supposedly, the police had uncovered some new incriminating evidence, but in the end, it was not enough to charge them with the murder of Natalee, and again, they were released 3 weeks later. The following month, on December 18th, the Aruban prosecutor did declare Natalee's case closed. They did not have remains, they did not have any evidence of what happened to her, and they just decided that it was time to forget about the missing teenager. However, the case did not remain closed for long. As of January 31st, a journalist did release a supposed taped confession from Joran. Apparently, he says on the tape that he had dumped Natalee at sea. This recording became public. Joran said that he was not telling the truth at the time, and somehow the whole thing was brushed off. To continue tormenting Natalee's loved ones, Joran said in 2010 that he would reveal the details of Natalee's death and the location of her body if the family paid him a $25,000 advance of the $250,000 reward. The only issue here was that the information Joran claimed he had was false. The building where Joran said Natalee's body was hidden did not even exist at the time that she went missing. Joran then had the audacity to say, "I wanted to get back at Natalee's family. Her parents have been making my life tough for 5 years." Later that year, everybody would learn more about what kind of person Joran Vandersloot really was. On May 30th, 2010, exactly 5 years after Natalee was last seen, Joran murdered another woman, 21-year-old Stephanie Flores, inside a hotel in Peru. As unbelievable as it sounds, during his trial, he actually blamed his actions on extreme psychological trauma suffered from allegations of killing Natalee Holloway. He was sentenced to 28 years in prison on January 13th, 2012. The day before his sentencing, Natalee Holloway was declared dead by an Alabama judge. Today, it has already been more than 15 years since Natalee Holloway left a nightclub in Aruba in a silver car and disappeared into the night. Many theories have surfaced about what exactly happened to her, most likely until Joran van der Sloot opens his mouth and tells the truth about that night. We will never know for sure what happened. There's no physical evidence linking him to Natalee's death, but his behavior has given more than enough hints of his involvement. Natalee's parents still do not know where their daughter is, but they do know that the man who is more than likely responsible for her disappearance will remain behind bars for a long time. Thank you so much for watching, supporting, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. And I'll see y'all next time. Bye.